The Lord is going to put us back in our land, man, through Yahweh Shai. We're going to be sovereign. We're going to rule. We're going to win. We're going to have everything in abundance, man. Our heart's desire, and our enemies will be our footstool.
Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces, like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings. Be instructed, ye judges of the earth. He withdraweth not his eyes from the righteous, but with kings are they on the throne, yea, he doth establish them forever, and they are exalted. But ye shall be named the priests of the Lord. Men shall call you the ministers of our God. Ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall ye boast yourselves. For your shame ye shall have double.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples for young brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds. In the name of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. All right, what I want to get into today, okay, to continue on in the series dealing, all right, with the epistles, okay, of John, and we made it to Second John, which is one chapter long. All right, in this chapter, he harps on doctrine. Now, when you go into this chapter, it's unique, because it's addressed, to the elect lady and her children. Okay, now in the spirit, we understand, that the Lord likens, Israel to a tender and delicate woman. Okay, how the Lord, likens the church to a bride. All right, so from a perspective, he could be talking to an actual, a woman and the children. Okay, but in the spirit, you have to understand, this is the church and her follower. Because I say the spirit of the believers, the body, is often referred to as, likened it to a woman. Okay, so when you read this, and we'll get some precepts to go into it, it says, the elder unto the elect lady and her children, whom I love in the truth, and not I only, but also all they that have known the truth. Okay, so he's writing these epistles, all right, to the Israelite foreigners, his audience. Okay, he's writing to a church in Asia Minor. Okay, and this church is being referred to as the elect lady and her children. Okay, now when you go just to prove, because what did Apostle Paul in his epistles, how did he refer? Okay, the church, when he goes first, might be second correct. Let's go here. So yeah, let's go here. So this Second Corinthians chapter 11. All right, in verse 2, it said, "For I'm jealous over you with godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Hamashiach." Okay? For I have espoused you to one husband. So we've been joined as believers unto Yahweh. Okay? So the church, is likened into, a woman, okay, like a bride. All right. And there's a church of believers we've been espoused, we've been joined to, we've been promised, okay, to one husband, that's Yahweh. Okay. And the apostles, were in the stead of a best man, which a best man would prepare the bride. He will be the go between the bride and the groom, putting things in order, preparing, for their day. Okay. Prepping the bride, okay, for their day, customizing the bride for their husband. You see? And this doctrine is customizing the believers, all right, for Yahweh Shai and his coming, and we're those spiritual virgins, you see, that we're faithful to one doctrine, obedient unto one doctrine, okay, not being penetrated by any other philosophy or doctrine, okay, but being pure for the coming of Yahweh Shai. All right, so let's go here. When you go to Revelation 19, okay, so in the spirit, the elect lady and her children, the church and her followers, okay, they're speaking of the elect. All right, so when you go to Revelation 19 and 7, it said, let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife have made herself ready. You see? So it refers to what? The church, the believers, as a wife, is being espoused, the elect lady, okay, which is what? Making herself ready. You see, in the spirit, because we're being prepared to be joined to our power. Okay. And what would a wife do? Well, she would help her husband manage his affairs. Okay. And the affairs of Yahushua is rulership, even going back to Adam and Eve. That was symbolic of Yahushua in the church as well. Now that was actual, Adam and Eve, two people that went through the events, that we read about in Genesis. Okay. But if you look at those things in the spirit, there was a church, there was a Yahushua in the church. Okay. So now the church is being made to be faithful. Eve, wasn't faithful. We wasn't faithful as a people. That's why we constantly went through captivities. You see? But now we're being taught to be faithful, not to follow the serpent this time. You see? So we're making ourselves ready. Okay, as believers. Okay, the church through the spirit of Yahweh Shai. It says, and to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. For the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. Okay, so we're being decked out with righteousness, but how are we being decked out? By a doctrine. Okay, how we're being decked out with righteousness is a doctrine. Okay, and he said unto me, right, blessed are they which are called into the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said unto me, these are the true sayings of the Most High. So Lord willing, We're part of that elect. All right. We're part of that elect. Okay, lady, you see, the church, man, and we're delivered. We get to partake in this marriage supper of the Lamb, which is like a great wedding reception for Yahweh Shai and his bride, the church, being joined together. You see? So going back, let's go here. One more example, okay? Because it could be talking about, an actual woman and her children, okay? But in the spirit, as a church and the believers, okay? This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, and verse 4 says, "Fear not, thou that," it says, fear not, for thou shalt not be ashamed, neither shalt thou be confounded, for thou shalt not be put to shame, for thou shalt forget the shame of thy youth, and shalt not remember the approach of thy widowhood anymore. For thy maker is thine husband, the Lord of hosts is his name, and thy redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the power of the whole earth shall he be called. For the Lord have called thee as a woman. You see, the Lord have called thee as a woman, forsaken and grieved in spirit, and a wife of youth. When thou wast refused, said thy power. Okay, because we was put off in our young age we was a young nation. You see, we got put away early. You see, we was a young nation, Yashala. And that's a shame for a woman to be divorced in her youth. It's like, damn, what did she do? You have a young woman. This in the ancient world. You have a young woman, and and she's put away. It's like, damn, he put away this little young woman. He just like, damn, she must have been on, and that was us. Okay, we was out of pocket, out of bounds. Okay, we was outside. You see, inside joke. You know, it says, "For the Lord have called thee as a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit, and a wife of youth when thou wast refused, said thy power. For a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee." All right, this is that woman being brought back. The Bible is a love story, man. Okay, between the Most High and his woman, which is Israel. Okay, and now we're going through the phase of being brought back in. Okay, so this is why we're going through that process, that espousal, that betrothal period right now, this grace period. Okay, because we're being prepared to be brought back in for mercy and forgiveness, man. You see, he says, "In a little wrath I hid my face from thee for a moment, but with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee, said the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Shai, thy Redeemer." Okay, so now we're going to enter, all right, his bride, his church, all right, his woman, okay, the wife is getting ready to enter back into that mercy, man, that favor. We went through the displeasure. Okay, we dealt with the Lord's wrath and his anger. Okay, now we're getting ready to deal with his mercy and favor forever. Okay, we dealt with his anger temporarily, like a husband, temporarily mad. Okay, with his woman, and eventually, their anger is appeased. You see, and there's a phase of what forgiveness being brought back in, and this is where we are now. Okay, so going back into it, it says, St. John 1:1 said, "The elder unto the elect lady and her children, whom I love in truth, and not only, it says, and not I only, but also all they that have known the truth, for the truth's sake which dwelleth in us, and shall be with us forever. Grace be with you, mercy and peace from the Most High the Father, and from the Lord Yahweh Shai Mashiach, the Son of the Father, in truth, okay, and in love. I rejoice greatly that I found thy children walking in truth, as we have received a commandment from the Father." You know, and this is the purpose for the believers. all right, to walk in truth. Okay. You see, now we operate in truth. We operate in the light, and it comes from what? Following Yahweh. Okay. Now we have clarity on the matter. You see, now we have clarity on everything, man. Who we are, who our enemy, who our enemies, Esau and these nations. Okay, we understand the concept dealing with 2/3. It's not for everyone. Everybody doesn't get it. Okay, the prophecies that's yet to happen. The signs leading to, these last major prophecies. Okay, so we understand these things because we walk in truth. We walk in light. St. John 8:12, then spake Yahushua again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life, man. Which is truth. And this truth has us on the path, to immortality, man. We've tapped into life. We're beginning to live, okay, in this truth. You see? So keep reading. It says, I rejoice greatly that I found of thy children, all right, walking in truth, as we have received a commandment from the Father. And now I beseech thee, lady, not as though I wrote a new commandment unto thee, but that which we had from the beginning, that we love one another, which we went over, the concept of love, in these other epistles, but he pushes that heavy. But in this epistle, all right, he's showing that love is not agreeing with false doctrine or being compromise, okay, with false doctrine. You see, it says, and this is love, that we walk after his commandments. This is the commandment that, as ye have from the beginning, you should walk in it. For many deceivers are entered into the world. Okay, and this is what we have now. Many deceivers, okay, are entered into, okay, this calling, man. There's a lot of people that are not called, that are here professing themselves, all right, to be teachers, man. Okay, there's a lot of actors. We coming into these times, and the Lord's exposing a lot of the things. Okay, so for many deceivers are entered into the world, who confess not that Yahweh Shah Hamashiach is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and anti, all right, Messiah. And that anti-Messiah spirit is going to be on the rise. As Yahweh Shah gets closer to returning, okay, that spirit of anti-Messiah is going to be agitated, man. What we're seeing amongst, you look at, like I said, you look amongst those that know they're Israelite, there's a heavy spirit of anti-Messiah, and what do they begin to attack? All right, the leadership and the doctrine. Okay, that's them attacking Yahweh under the guise of, as if they care, for the believers, for the church. Is what they're doing is on behalf of caring for the church and the believers. So they're same thing the serpent did. The serpent came with a game like he was rescuing Eve, all right, from the Most High and Adam. He came in like he was concerned about her well-being, and he was rescuing her from Adam and the Most High and Adam. And these guys, they come in with that same serpent-like, okay, narrative, as if they're rescuing, the believers from, Yahweh Shai and the apostles, and that's why they attack the leadership and the doctrine, okay, the serpent, all right, the fact that he's even speaking to Eve on these matters, he's going against, all right, Adam, and then he went against what? The doctrine. Okay, so this is a major thing that's going to be on the rise, man, as we get closer to Yahweh Shai. This is why this is the time to get rooted, okay, and understand, to be serious minded about doctrine, man. Understanding what you believe, okay? You can't just I believe. No, what do you believe? We gotta be specific on what do we believe in. Doctrine is the specifics about what we believe. Okay? Second John 1:9, it says, whoso transgressive and abideth not in the doctrine. Okay, I'm gonna read verse 8. I think I'll skip 8. It says, look to yourselves that we lose not the things which we have wrought, but that we receive a full reward. Okay? And see, we're not here to lose, go this far following the Lord, and then be U-turned by a false doctrine. Okay? We didn't get in this to lose, man. We want to win. We want to win back Yahweh shot. Okay, which that's getting everything. You see, it says, whosoever transgressive and abideth not in the doctrine of Hamashiach have not the most high. He that abideth in the doctrine of Hamashiach, he have both the Father and the Son. You see, the Father and the Son. You see, so when you're in the right doctrine, we have that combination of the Father and the Son because we receive Yahushua where the Father is in Yahushua. You see, we want that total package, man, but that's through obeying, the right doctrine, believing in the right doctrine, man. Okay, because the doctrine is cultivating us. Because remember, as a bride will be getting ready for, her husband, well, she will be getting groomed up on the details to be customized, for her husband. This doctrine is, grooming us up in the details. We're being cultivated in the details of how to be pleasing to our husband, man. Yahweh Shai. Okay? It says, if there come any unto you and bring not this doctrine, receive him not into your house, neither be him Godspeed. And this is why the people that are most confused are the ones that listen to all these different camps. Okay? They just have this gumbo doctrine. Okay? Because when you're sitting there listening and taking in and trying to take parts from this and parts from that, okay, you're confused because it's going to be a lot of contradictions. Okay, and if someone is coming with false doctrine, they're coming in a completely different spirit. You see? So when you go here, because what joins us together, no, first, what joins us together is the doctrine. Okay, the glue, okay, to the ministry is the doctrine, the belief. You see? It's 1 Corinthians 1:10 says, now I beseech you, brethren, by the name of our Lord Yahweh Shah Mashiach, that ye all speak the same thing. Okay? That we all speak the same thing. And that's why the doctrine is uniform. Okay? The doctrine is uniform across the whole board. You see? Different camps, different cities, different brothers, same doctrine, speaking the same thing. Okay? That's why as you watch, all right, the different camps, the different brothers, start our apostles and elders GMS on down. Okay? Well, you're getting the same doctrine. You're getting different perspectives. Brothers have different lots and different gifts, but you're getting the same doctrine. It all right, fits together perfectly, man. It's like a puzzle. It's 100% true. And each camp, each brother has a piece of puzzle to add to that. Okay, to paint the overall bigger picture. It said that all ye speak the same thing, and there be no divisions among you, but that ye be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same judgment, which is the same doctrine. Okay, Yahweh Shah, what did he warn? Okay, I believe that's Matthew 16. Okay. This is Matthew 16:5. It says, and when his disciples, okay, all right, so this is Matthew 16:5. It says, and when his disciples were come to the other side, they had forgotten to take bread. Then Yahushua said unto them, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. Okay, so he's telling them to beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. And they reason among themselves, saying, it is because we have taken no bread. When Yahushua had perceived, he said unto them, because they thought he was speaking about little bread or actual bread, literal bread. Okay, but he's going to expound what he was saying. Which when Yahushua perceived, he said unto them, O ye of little faith, why reason are ye among yourselves because ye have brought no bread? You know, so they wasn't spiritual, all right, and they didn't have faith. They didn't understand, okay, because he had just did miracles of multiplying bread, so he's not concerned. He's not, weary, okay, about actual bread. Okay, he's going to expound and say, do ye not understand, neither remember the 5 loaves and the 5,000, and how many baskets ye took up, neither the 7 loaves or the 4,000, and how many baskets you took up. So he's like, look, if I was talking about actual bread, I could, I multiply bread, actual bread, you know. So he wasn't speaking about actual bread. How is it that you do not understand that I spake it not to you concerning bread, that ye should be aware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees? Then understood they how that he bade them not beware the leaven of bread, but of the doctrine, okay, of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Okay, because what leaven is an agent that rises, it takes a little, okay, but it spreads throughout the whole loaf. Okay, and that's why it doesn't take nothing but a little false doctrine, okay, to throw off the rest of the doctrine, man. To infuse itself in the rest of the doctrine. That's why he's telling them to be mindful of the leaven. Their doctrine is off. You know, you had the Sadducees that were sellouts, to the Roman government, okay, and the Pharisees, all right. Some of them, which a lot of them were more sincere than the Sadducees, but the Pharisees, okay, they were be over righteous to a fault, you know. So Yahushua, his doctrine was a balance, you know. So the doctrine of Yahushua was pure; it was directly from the Father. You see, and this is the doctrine that we follow, okay. But a little leaven, okay, a little lie. And that's how it starts with a little lie. You change one thing. That's what Jake do. They change one thing, run with it, then eventually everything is being changed because that little leaven has spread everywhere. Now every part of the doctrine is being scrutinized and subject to change. Okay? So this is why, you see the apostles, they're heavy, when they deal with what the particulars, making sure we on point in the particulars, okay, because of what it can lead to. All right, 2 Timothy 3:16, it says all scripture is given by inspiration of the Most High and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. It's profitable for what? For doctrine. Okay, the specifics, what we believe. You see, so that's why there's emphasis on the doctrine, man. Okay, and we come to a time not knowing what the C-hip is, not knowing what the MOTB is, not knowing that it's the C-hip, the RFID microchip. If you don't know that, okay, that's not a part of the doctrine that you say you believe in. That's going to be fatal not to know that. You see, you don't know what an Edomite is. You think the so-called white man is Japheth. That's vital because you don't understand where we at in prophecy now. That you don't understand that this is the devil, all right, the wicked that the Bible speaks of that's in power. Okay, so doctrine, is vital. This is not a random thing, where you can, uh, pretty much Jake like to take, like I say, from different doctrines and fabricate and customize a doctrine that suit their emotions. Now, man, the doctrine is a doctrine, okay, and it's the specifics of what we believe, okay. And when you keep reading, matter of fact, um, I read this in the AMP because what's the purpose of the doctrine? What is it doing? Okay, because you're being cultivated, okay, in the false doctrine. Well, the final product gonna be off. When you go into the AMP, 2 Timothy 3:17 says, so that the man of the Most High may be complete and proficient, outfitted and thoroughly equipped for every good work. Okay? So that the man of the Most High may be complete and proficient. So we're being grown up, cultivated by a doctrine to be complete and proficient as a joint heir of Yahushua. You know, likened to a woman being outfitted and thoroughly equipped for every good work towards her husband. Hey, you see? So let's go from there. Let's go back to First John. Yeah, Second John. So like Second John. Um, I'll read verse 10 again. It says, if there come any unto you and bring not this doctrine, receive him not in your house, neither bid him Godspeed. For he that bid him Godspeed is a partaker of his evil deeds. Now, that's why we don't do unity camps. Okay, we don't act like we approve of false doctrine. No, we address these things because not addressing it, okay, and unifying with it, all right. Hey, you're a partaker in that evil deed. You see, it was part of the law. If someone sinned and you spoke, and you didn't speak on it, well, you was a partaker of their sin. You seen sin and you didn't speak on it and report on it. Well, you are a partaker of this sin. So we're always going to speak out against false teachings and false doctrine, man. Okay, it's always going to be men in the camp singled out and their doctrines addressed, man. Okay, that's the duty of a judge. You see, it says, having many things to write unto you, I will not write with paper and ink, but I trust to come to you and speak face to face, that our joy, all right, may be full. The children of the elect sister greet thee, amen. All right. So let's it. We end it there. All right. So Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters edified once again. I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards young brothers, and peace and blessing salutations to the whole elect Shalom.